The Disney Renaissance of the early 90s gave us some of the most gorgeous and well-done full-length animated films to ever be created by Walt Disney Animation. Films like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin ushered in an era of renewed interest in the art form, while also bringing in a lot of box office revenue. And now, let's take a step back in time to 1993, to an era of Doc Martens and mom jeans, to a time when Beanie Babies and Barney reigned supreme. Of course, the purple dinosaur wasn't the only prehistoric personality to appear in the 90s. Moviegoers were invited to experience the first dinosaur theme park. Hollywood also gave us
We're men in tights. We roam around the forest looking for lights.
And Robin Williams in drag.
Hello!
Director Michael Bay teamed up with the California Milk Processing Board to ignite one of the most successful marketing campaigns of all time.
And now let's make that random call with today's $10,000 question. It's a tough one. Who shot Alexander Hamilton in that famous duel? All right, let's go to the phones and see who's out there.
Hello?
Hello, for $10,000, who shot... Excuse me?
Hold on, let me get some milk. No!
I'm afraid your time is almost up.
No!
I'm sorry, maybe next time.
Got milk?
The Disney Company introduces moviegoers to Jack Skellington, the Sanderson sisters, and a group of Jamaican bobsledders. Roger Rabbit appears in his final animated shorts, Trail Mix-Up, alongside Baby Herman and Jessica Rabbit.
I must say, you do look like you know what you're doing.
Disney's Aladdin took home 2 Academy Awards for Best Original Score, as well as Best Original Song for A Whole New World. The song Friend Like Me was also nominated for Best Song. Man, I forgot how good the music was in this film. The Super Nintendo was the hottest video game console on the market. Disney had already teamed up with video game developer Capcom to produce a slew of games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The two companies would continue their collaboration during the 16-bit era, producing games like Goof Troop and The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse for the SNES. Then in 1993, Capcom would release a game based on Disney's 31st full-length animated film.
Hi! You have been specially selected from among thousands of players to receive some inside information on the hottest video game of the holiday season. Capcom has brought a blockbuster movie to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Disney's Aladdin.
Aladdin for the Super Nintendo is proof that developers can actually produce a good game based on a movie. Imagine that! Like most platformers, the game involved a lot of jumping. For the most part, the game follows the story of the film, but there are a few occasions when the developers took a few liberties. And in my opinion, this is where the game really shines.
Don't miss the chance to capture the power of the lamp on your very own Super NES system. Get Disney's Aladdin and live the magic and mystery of this classic action-adventure. Disney's Aladdin. Quality entertainment software flying to your Super Nintendo Entertainment System from Capcom.
Now, it's important to remember that there was a point in time in which different video game developers could potentially work on the same property. For example, Tailspin was produced by 2 different groups for Sega and Nintendo. The Little Mermaid, another property that was produced by 2 entirely different companies, producing 2 entirely different games. And the same holds true for Aladdin. In total, there were 5 different versions of Aladdin created for different consoles and handhelds. My personal favorite was the version created for the Sega Genesis. Virgin Interactive was responsible for developing the Genesis version.
Get this! At school I found this magic lamp, and I wished for Disney's Aladdin for my Sega Genesis. It's like the movie! I got to battle sword-slashing thieves, and nasty palace guards, and ride a flying carpet. And I still have 2 more wishes.
Prove it!
The development team came up with a number of really cool concepts that helped make this the superior version of the game, in my humble opinion.
Hey everyone, I'm Robb Alvey, and yes, I was the producer of Aladdin on the Sega Genesis. So Aladdin was a really fun and interesting project in that when we originally were developing Aladdin, we weren't developing a game for Disney. We were actually working on this, what was the name of the game? It was these dinosaurs. I think it was called Dino Blaze. I think the meeting with Disney that we initially had was more to pitch Disney on this technology we were doing with this dinosaur game, where we were taking traditional drawn cell animation and digitizing it into the game. So we had this really nice fluid feature animation like movement, in a 16-bit game, and no one was doing this at the time. Disney basically said, we're not interested in your property, but we want you to develop the Sega Genesis version of Aladdin.
I think the Genesis version was also graphically superior to the Super Nintendo. As I understand it, the Virgin Interactive team worked alongside Disney animators to develop the game's signature style. Visually, it felt much more like the animated film.
We had meetings, with Jeffrey Katzenberg at the time, with the directors of the film. But probably the most notable thing and what was most fun for me is I was always kind of a Disney fanboy. And so I had to separate that fanboyism with my professionalism at the time, which was kind of difficult to do when you're sitting in a room with animators. In fact, the animation was being done out here in Orlando when Orlando had a feature animation team at the time. And I remember one of the trips, I came over with one of our animators, and we were both kind of Disney fanboys, but we were at the time having to kind of teach the Disney animators how to animate for a video game. And it was just kind of one of those like really cool moments in my career where I'm like, man, here's something that I've been looking at all my life, and now these Disney animators are like coming to us for advice. It was kind of cool. It was crazy.
Graphically, I'd probably give Genesis the win for successfully capturing the look and feel of the movie. But what about the music? That argument is a bit more subjective. My absolute favorite track came during the bonus level on the Genesis version of Aladdin. During this minigame, you play as the lovable Abu in order to collect some valuable bonus items.
He's got a sword! Hey, you idiots! We've all got swords!
And speaking of weapons, while both games allowed players to throw apples at long-range enemies, it was only the Genesis version that gave Aladdin a scimitar in order to deal with close-range enemies. That's right, in the Genesis version, Aladdin had a freaking sword.
The packaging was really interesting. So, like, for example, this was the American version, and the US version also shared similar box art to the one in Europe. But I gotta be honest, I actually kind of like the one in Japan the most. I mean, it's for the American audience, it's like, hey, I'm Aladdin, I'm kicking ass, I've got my sword, check me out. But the Japanese one was a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more kind of harken back to the animated film, and I kind of like it. I mean, I love the genie's expression on the back of the box too. I mean, he's got, I don't know, I think out of all the versions that were made, the Japanese one's actually my favorite out of all the boxes.
So I've got one more point for you guys to consider. If you were to take the word Genesis and rearrange all the letters, it would spell genies. So yeah, that's something, right? All right. Over 25 years after the release of the two competing titles, fans still debate which version of the game is superior. While I adore Aladdin on the Genesis, many haters are quick to ridicule the game's often experimental stage layout and somewhat nondescript health bar. Still others, like myself, praise those elements for making the game feel unique. Capcom would only produce 2 more Disney games for the Super Nintendo, Bonkers and The Great Circus Mystery. Now let's fast forward 1 year. to 1994. The Buffalo Bills had just lost their 4th consecutive Super Bowl. Steven Spielberg won his first directing Oscar for Schindler's List, and the club scene was full of people doing the The Beauty and the Beast musical was released on Broadway, and one of my favorite attractions, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, opened at Disney's MGM Studios. Now, at the same time, Virgin Interactive continued to work with the Disney company on a few more video game titles. Under the direction of Dave Perry, Virgin Interactive hit a home run with Aladdin. Understandably, both companies were looking to continue that success on upcoming titles. During the production of the Jungle Book video game, Perry's team would move on in order to create their own company, Shiny Entertainment. If that name sounds familiar to any of you gamers, it might be because Shiny was responsible for one of the strangest intergalactic heroes of all time. Now, I see some of you scratching your heads. Let me bring you up to speed. Jim was just an ordinary Earthworm until he came across an incredible super suit.
What? Where's my super suit? What? Where is my super suit?
The suit allowed Jim to operate much like a human, and even came equipped with a plasma blaster. The goal of the game was to defeat the evil Queen Slugforabutt in order to save Princess... what's her name? No, that was actually her name.
Pardon me.
Obviously, Earthworm Jim is one of those comedic action games. Shiny employed a lot of the same techniques used in Aladdin for the Genesis in order to create a fluid, animated look. Over at Virgin Interactive, production continued on the Jungle Book. New developers were brought on board to ensure the project would be completed. In the Jungle Book, you take on the role of Mowgli, armed with, bananas.
All you getting is bananas and underwear. You ever try to get to level 10 in your underwear, boy?
Similar to Aladdin, players were required to collect items before they were eligible to progress to the next level. The game also featured some of the Jungle Book's best tracks, including The Bare Necessities and I Wanna Be Like You. I guess if I had to voice one complaint, I would have to admit that I wish they used a bit more Baloo in the game. Disney's Tailspin had already been a hugely popular television show. So it's kind of crazy to me that the fun-loving bear doesn't even appear on the cover of the Genesis version. Fortunately, the Jungle Book was released on the Super Nintendo as well, and Baloo is included on the box art, although he doesn't look all that happy about it. Now let's head back over to Disney Feature Animation, where the studio had just released one of the greatest animated films of all time. Disney's 32nd animated film would go on to become the crown jewel of their film library. And no, I'm not just saying that because the word king is in the title. When Disney released The Lion King in 1994, it was the first time the studio had developed their own original concept rather than adapting a previously written story or literary work. Ever since the release of Snow White in 1937, Walt Disney Production had become very successful at making quote-unquote princess movies and retellings of classic fairy tales.
Do you have magic hair?
Well, no.
Magic hands?
No.
Do animals talk to you?
No, not Zazu.
Were you poisoned?
Ew, gross.
For that reason, a movie about lions that feels like it's one part Hamlet with a dash of the parable of the prodigal son would seem a little off the mark.
I don't know what I'm doing.
But of course, The Lion King wound up being a cultural phenomenon that spawned 2 sequels, was adapted into a Broadway musical, and spun off 2 animated television series. Oh, and we can't forget that our friends at Virgin Interactive even gave us one of the most gorgeous, and arguably most difficult, games of the 16-bit era. I give you the Lion King video game.
Alright, so I guess I'm playing Lion King here. Yeah, I hear this game is really hard, but you know, for an expert player like me, it shouldn't be a problem at all. So let's go ahead and get started. I guess lions are a little bit more adept at climbing than people. Can I roar at the bug? I was killed by a bug. Oh crap! Wait, I jumped on him once. Okay, yeah, I'm playing on the easy mode, so give me a break.
Aladdin was its own experience because at the time, all the people that were involved, it was a small team, and kind of like we were sort of shooting from the hip, right? Like no one had kind of ever done a game like that before. But then after Aladdin was done, everybody saw how like well it came together, how great it did in sales. Everyone was just really excited to be on board with the project, and everybody loved the idea of like this kind of new medium. And I think that's really what it was. It was like, okay, before video games, you were like, when you thought of games, you thought of like Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, where it's like very like limited sprite animations, and all of a sudden now we're employing the real Disney animators to create like real animation for a game, and that was very exciting to everybody because nobody ever seen anything like that before. We were developing Lion King to come out with the film.
Oh wow!
So that's why we were seeing early screenings of the film. I honestly, I forget actually the very first screening that I saw. But I know that we saw an early one, and one of the first things I remember seeing was like kind of that transformation scene with like, you know, Simba and when he's walking across the and I remember seeing that. And it was still half pencil sketch and everything.
The development team would work alongside Disney animators to create a fluid style that was reminiscent of the source material.
This kind of reminds me of Pitfall, jumping on the heads of the gators. No! And into the water. I know what I'm supposed to do here. It said roar at monkeys earlier, so I know what to do. Like I said, I'm an expert player. He fell. Alright, let's do this. Jump. Well, what that? It looks like a pig. Not sure. Double jump. There we go. We got it. Now we duck under that one. Sweet. What's so hard about this game? It's easy.
They also did a great job of including some fun and whimsical elements in the game, like the colorful level design and an amusing bonus level where Pumbaa gets to chow down on some grubs. Now, as any video game developer will tell you, normally bugs in video games are bad news. But in The Lion King, they're slimy yet satisfying.
Tastes like chicken.
There was Westwood Studios out in Las Vegas. They were actually doing the development on it. They've done a lot of console games before, but traditionally they've done a lot of like older skewing PC adventure games. There was the design team back at Virgin. There was the people at Disney. You know, everybody seemed to wanted to have, you know, a role in this game to kind of put their name on it because everyone saw the success that Aladdin had. And you know, whenever you have something that is successful and people want to latch onto that and kind of you know, ride on those coattails, and a lot of that I think is what happened with Lion King. I mean, not not like really in a bad way. It was a little bit more of a challenging development. Especially now because the development house that was doing the game was in a different state from the house that was publishing the game. So we had production people that were in Irvine, California. We had people that were in Las Vegas, Nevada. You know, we had people out here in Orlando that were working on the animation. And you know, we had people in LA that were helping with digitize. There was lots of people working on the game.
One of the things that surprised people the most was the difficulty of the game.
Oh my gosh, seriously? I don't think I can beat these guys. I gotta get out of here. How do I get out of here? There's a giant elephant skull right there. And these hyenas are jumping on me. Oh, I got them. Okay. I didn't think I could kill them. These hyenas are bad. They're mean. I don't like these guys. Ah! Well, the graphics are nice anyway. Creepy. Get away from me, bird! Stop dogging me. Climb. Get up, Simba. He's just gonna dangle there. Get up there. Oh, okay, cool.
So one of the things that we had was you had this rental market, right? You had Blockbuster that was famous for like buying up like a whole bunch of games, and we love Blockbuster for the business that they gave the publishers, because they would buy like 10,000 copies or whatever. But what would happen is people would go and rent a game, and they would finish it in a night or two, and they would take it back, and then that would be it. So it was having a strong impact on sales of games at the time. So we always kind of call like, okay, we need like rental blocker levels, right? Where like you had to strike this balance of like, okay, you need to find a difficulty setting where you go, I'm having so much fun with this game, but I can't finish it in 2 or 3 days that I would want to go out and buy it, versus this game is so damn hard, I just want to throw my controller against the wall and never play it again.
I mean, it was close. It was close. Well, there were moments there where you're just like, oh my gosh. It was a game for gamers, not necessarily lightweights.
And that's exactly it. So like I honestly, one of the memories I do have about Lion King that I still remember to this day is sitting in focus groups. And so we would do the focus testing where you'd have a bunch of kids like play the game, and we'd be behind the glass, like stalking them, right? And it would be 100% of the kids, like they couldn't get past like level 2, and they were like frustrated and they were pissed off. And I remember I had one of the designers, they just don't know how to play the game, And I remember we would get into arguments about it, because like we had some of the designers on the game, and this was the age-old problem where like you had a game designer that was playing the game over and over and over and over and over and over again. So they knew exactly how to get through level, boom, they can get through level quickly. But you have to remember, like you hand that game from a game designer that's played that game 1,000 times to someone that's never played it, and if you watch them play and you're like, I can't get past the first 30 seconds without wanting to like throw my controller against the wall and scream and murder people, that's a problem. And then when you have that designer that refuses to admit or realize that's a problem, that's an even bigger problem. And that's kind of exactly what happened with Lion King. But I think Virgin probably they didn't want to have a game that people could rent and then not buy. They wanted to have a game where they could like put it out there and say, man, like I rented this at Blockbuster and I couldn't finish it, so now I need to go buy it. But I think really what was happening is you had a lot of people that were renting it and then would get frustrated. That being said, it was one of the highest selling games of all time, so maybe I'm wrong.
Despite its challenging gameplay, the game was certainly a financial success. It's said that The Lion King sold well over 1 million units on just the Super Nintendo alone. It's still remembered as one of the most visually impressive titles of the 16-bit era. And hey, the music was pretty incredible too. Now we want to hear from you folks. Have you ever experienced any of these games? And if so, which one was your favorite? Tell us about it in the comments section below. We also need to say a huge thank you to Robb Alvey, Gregory George, and Benjamin Briggs for contributing to this video. I've added all their links for their YouTube channels in the description below.